The hillside exploded in a cloud of rock and dust. Lieutenant Cole Ramsey pressed his face into the dirt, feeling the percussion of mortars shake his teeth. Around him, SEAL Team Bravo 2 hugged whatever cover they could find in the Coast Valley, and there wasn't much. "Ramsey, we've got movement on the eastern ridge." Petty Officer Derek Walsh's voice crackled through the comms, barely audible over the cacophony of gunfire. Cole risked a glance upward. Through the haze of smoke and settling debris, he counted at least 20 hostiles advancing down the slope. Behind them, more shadows moved between the rocks. They'd walked straight into a kill box, and the enemy had sprung the trap perfectly. "How many?" Cole barked into his radio. "Too damn many," came the reply from Sergeant Marcus Quinn. Positioned 30 yards to Cole's left, we're looking at 3-to-1 odds, minimum. Cole's mind raced through tactical options. The valley walls rose steeply on both sides, funneling them into this narrow corridor. Air support couldn't reach them, the weather had turned foul, clouds hanging low and thick over the mountains. The extraction point was 2 clicks north, but it might as well have been on the moon. "Bravo 2, this is Ramsey," he transmitted to the full team. "Establish suppressing fire on eastern targets. We need to buy time for..." An RPG streaked overhead, so close Cole felt the heat wash across his helmet. It impacted 50 meters behind them, sending a jeep-sized boulder tumbling down the scree. "They're trying to cut off our retreat," Walsh shouted. Cole watched the enemy forces maneuvering with practiced efficiency. These weren't scattered insurgents, this was a coordinated military operation. Someone had known exactly where Bravo 2 would be, exactly when they'd be vulnerable. A burst of machine gun fire raked across their position. Cole heard a grunt of pain and saw Petty Officer James Chen go down, clutching his shoulder. Corpsman Taylor Briggs was already moving, crawling through the chaos to reach the wounded operator. "Chen's hit," Briggs called out. "Shoulder wound, but he's losing blood fast." The situation was deteriorating by the second. Cole counted his remaining effectives. 7 men still combat ready, 1 wounded, ammunition running low, no air support, and enemy forces closing from 3 sides. The tactical calculus was brutal and simple. They had maybe 10 minutes before this became a massacre. "Ramsey, we need to move now." Quinn's voice held an edge of desperation. Cole had never heard from the veteran sergeant before. Cole was about to give the order to fall back when he saw the glint of an RPG launcher being raised on the western ridge. The shot would be perfect, right into the center of their defensive cluster. There was nowhere to go, no time to scatter. "RPG west, take cover." But even as he shouted the warning, Cole knew it was too late. They were about to die in this godforsaken valley, and there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. Then the world changed with a single sound. Crack. The sound was different from the chaos surrounding them, cleaner, sharper, carrying across the valley with an almost musical clarity. Cole's brain, trained through thousands of hours of combat, recognized it instantly. A precision rifle, high caliber, fired from extreme range. The man with the RPG launcher dropped like a puppet with cut strings. The weapon clattered down the rocky slope, unfired. For a heartbeat, the battlefield seemed to pause. Even the enemy fighters hesitated, confused by what had just happened. "What the hell?" Walsh breathed over the comms. Another shot rang out. Crack! A hostile machine gunner spinning toward their position went down, his weapon falling silent. Then another. Crack! The enemy commander, identifiable by his distinctive headgear, collapsed in mid-gesture. 3 shots, 3 kills, each one impossibly precise, fired from a distance that should have been beyond effective range for any conventional sniper rifle. Who fired those shots? Cole demanded into his radio. Who's providing support? Silence answered him. Each member of Bravo 2 checked in negative. None of them had the angle, the equipment, or the skill for what they'd just witnessed. "Ghost shooter," Quinn muttered. "Has to be." Cole's eyes swept the surrounding ridgelines, searching for muzzle flash, movement, any sign of their mysterious benefactor. The enemy forces were also looking now, their advance stalling as they sought cover from an invisible threat. Crack! Another shot. A hostile heavy weapons specialist went down. Crack! Then another. The precision was inhuman, mechanical, as if some targeting computer had been given human form and a rifle. "Whoever they are, they're buying us time," Cole said, making the decision in an instant. "Bravo 2, execute tactical withdrawal. Move north toward the extraction point. Briggs, get Chen mobile. Walsh, Quinn your rear guard. Go. The team moved with practiced efficiency, even in their exhausted state. They bounded backward in pairs, one element covering while the other relocated, eating up precious yards of ground. The mysterious sniper continued to fire, each shot selecting the enemy fighters who posed the greatest immediate threat. It was like having a guardian angel with a rifle scope. They'd covered maybe 300 yards when Cole saw her. She came down the cliff face like liquid shadow, rappelling from an overhang that shouldn't have provided enough anchor point for a squirrel, much less a fully equipped sniper. Her movements were economical, precise, each motion flowing into the next without wasted energy. She wore no standard uniform, just practical field gear in desert colors, a rifle slung across her back that Cole didn't recognize from any military inventory. And then she turned to look at him. Cole's world stopped. The face was older, harder, weathered by sun and hardship. 3 years had carved lines around her eyes and mouth that hadn't been there before. But those eyes, sharp, intelligent, fierce, were unmistakable. Serena? The word came out as barely a whisper. Serena Vale, Force Recon Operator, former Marine Scout Sniper, his partner on a dozen classified operations. The woman who taught him to read terrain like a book, who could shoot the wings off a fly at 800 yards, who'd saved his life more times than he could count. The woman whose after-action report 3 years ago had ended with the words "killed in action." She was standing 20 feet away from him, very much alive. "You're dead," Cole heard himself say, the words stupid even as they left his mouth. Serena Vale didn't smile. She didn't rush forward for an emotional reunion. She simply unslung her rifle. Cole recognized it now as a custom-built precision weapon, not standard military issue, and scanned the ridgeline with professional detachment. "We need to move," she said. Her voice was different too, rougher, like it hadn't been used for casual conversation in a very long time. "They'll regroup in less than 5 minutes. This valley becomes a death trap when they bring up their mortars. Serena, move first, talk later." She was already heading north, her stride covering ground with an efficiency that suggested she knew every rock and crevice in this godforsaken valley. Cole forced his brain back into tactical mode. She was right. Whatever impossible situation had just presented itself, survival took priority over answers. "Bravo 2, we have additional friendly. Continue north double time." The team moved out, casting confused glances at the woman who'd appeared from nowhere. Walsh fell in beside Cole, his voice low. "Sir, who is?" Later, Cole cut him off. They pushed hard for the next 40 minutes. Serena, ranging ahead like a ghost, occasionally disappearing behind rock formations, only to reappear further up the trail, always checking, always alert. She moved through the terrain with an intimacy that spoke of months, maybe years, of familiarity. When they finally reached a defensible position, a cluster of boulders overlooking the valley below, Cole called a halt. Chen needed medical attention beyond what Briggs could provide in the field, and the team needed rest before the final push to extraction. Serena posted herself on the highest rock, rifle at ready, scanning their back trail. Cole climbed up beside her, his heart hammering against his ribs for reasons that had nothing to do with the altitude. 3 years, he said quietly. "The report said you were killed during the Kunduz operation. They gave you a memorial service. Your name is on the wall at..." "I know what the report said." Serena didn't take her eyes from her scope. The report was convenient for everyone involved. Cole felt anger beginning to override his shock. "Convenient? We thought you were dead." "I thought..." He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. "You thought you'd lost me because you followed orders and left me behind." Now she did look at him, and the weight of those 3 years pressed down on Cole like a physical force. "Don't carry that, Cole. The decision to extract was correct. I would have made the same call." "Then why?" Cole gestured helplessly. "Why let everyone believe you were gone?" Serena turned back to her scope. "Because I was gone. The person you knew, the Marine who followed orders and believed in the mission, she died in that compound in Kunduz." The memory came back unwelcome, vivid as the day it happened. Cole could still feel the cold fear that had gripped his chest 3 years ago in the mountains of northeastern Afghanistan. The mission had been straightforward on paper. Infiltrate a suspected Taliban command post, gather intelligence, extract before dawn. Cole's SEAL team and Serena's Force Recon unit had been joined for the operation. The first time they'd worked together since completing advanced tactical training at Fort Bragg. It should have been routine. It became a nightmare. The intelligence was bad, Cole said, the words bitter in his mouth. They sent us after a supposed high-value target. What we found was a wedding party, Serena finished. 60 civilians, children, old men, women who screamed when we burst through the doors. Cole closed his eyes, seeing it again. The horrified faces in the lamplight, the innocent confusion, the children crying. They'd aborted immediately, of course, but the damage was done. Someone in the compound had triggered an alarm, and within minutes, the real enemy had arrived. A Taliban QRF that had been using the village as a staging area. We had to fight our way out through 4 blocks of hostile territory, Cole continued. You volunteered to hold the southern approach, buy us time to extract the team and the civilians we'd endangered. Someone had to stay behind. I had the best position, the best equipment for it. Serena's voice was flat, reciting facts. You gave me 15 minutes, I gave you 20. Cole remembered screaming into the radio, ordering Serena to fall back, but her position had been overrun. The last transmission had been the sound of gunfire and then static. When they'd sent a recovery team at dawn, they'd found blood, spent brass, signs of a serious firefight, but no body. The official report said you'd been killed, Cole said. Enemy forces must have taken your body. Is that what you believed? I didn't know what to believe. But after 6 months with no contact, no proof of life, no ransom demands. Cole's voice cracked slightly. Eventually, you have to accept reality. Or what they tell you is reality. They lied. Serena's words cut through the mountain air like one of her bullets. Not just to you, to everyone, because the truth was too inconvenient, too messy, too politically explosive. Cole felt the anger returning, hotter now. What truth? The intelligence that sent us into that compound wasn't bad luck or an honest mistake. It was deliberately falsified. Someone in the CIA wanted us to hit that wedding party, wanted the political fallout, wanted to justify increased military action in the region. Serena's hands tightened on her rifle, and when I survived long enough to figure that out, I became a liability. The implications hit Cole like a physical blow. They left you. They didn't leave me. They actively ensured I couldn't come back. Serena finally lowered her rifle, turning to face him fully. I was captured that night, held for 11 months in 3 different locations. Every escape attempt, every signal I sent, blocked, intercepted, neutralized. Eventually, I realized no one was coming, so I stopped waiting for rescue and rescued myself. Cole stared at her, trying to process the magnitude of what she was describing. And after you escaped? I tried to make contact, tried to come in from the cold, but every channel I reached out through got shut down. Finally got word through a backnull that my death was official, sealed, classified. Coming back would raise questions that certain people at Langley really didn't want asked. A ghost of a bitter smile touched her lips. So I stayed dead. For 3 years you've been out here alone? Not entirely alone. There are others like me. Operators who know too much, who became inconvenient. We look out for each other. Serena looked out over the valley. And I've kept this region under surveillance. The same elements that set up that wedding party hit are still operating, still running guns and intelligence through these mountain passes. I couldn't stop the big picture, but I could make their lives difficult. One shot at a time. The legendary ghost shooter of the coast region. Cole had heard the stories, enemy commanders who died from impossible distances, weapons shipments that never reached their destinations, ambushes that turned into disasters for the ambushers. The locals spoke of a vengeful spirit haunting the mountains. That's been you, Cole said. All those operations we couldn't explain. Keeping busy, Serena said dryly. Below them, Quinn's voice called up. Lieutenant, Chen's stable, but he needs a hospital. How much longer to extraction? Cole checked his watch and his GPS. 2 hours if we push hard. Can you maintain that pace? This last was directed at Serena. She gave him a look that reminded him exactly who had trained whom in long-distance tactical movement. I'll manage. Number Part 5. Uneasy Alliance. The next phase of their movement was tense in ways that had nothing to do with enemy contact. Bravo 2 accepted Serena's presence with the pragmatic gratitude of soldiers who recognized competence when they saw it. But Cole could feel the questions hanging in the air. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was their lieutenant looking at her like he'd seen a ghost? Serena ranged ahead as before, but now Cole understood what he was seeing. She wasn't just familiar with this terrain, she'd made it her domain. She knew which paths would be watched, which ridgelines provided the best overwatch, where water could be found, where the enemy positioned their observation posts. This wasn't just map knowledge. This was ownership. "She's good," Walsh murmured, watching Serena disappear and reappear like smoke. "Really good." "Where'd you find her, sir?" "I didn't find her," Cole replied. "She found us." They made good time despite Chen's injury. Serena set a pace that was aggressive but sustainable, and she'd chosen a route that kept them in defilade, below the ridgeline where they'd be silhouetted against the sky. Professional tradecraft from someone who'd spent years surviving alone in hostile territory. An hour into the march, she held up a fist, the universal signal for stop. The team froze instantly. Serena pointed to a section of trail ahead, then made a sweeping gesture indicating they needed to detour. Cole moved up to her position. "What is it?" "Pressure plate IED. About 30 yards ahead. They've started mining the northern approaches." Serena pointed out subtle disturbances in the soil that Cole would have walked right past. "3 more, between here and the ridgeline. They're getting smarter about our extraction patterns." "Can we bypass?" "Follow me. Single file. Step exactly where I step." She led them on a winding path that seemed random until Cole realized she was threading them between invisible death traps, reading the ground the way most people read street signs. It added 20 minutes to their timeline, but potentially saved all their lives. When they finally cleared the danger zone, Quinn caught up to Cole. "Sir, with respect, who the hell is she?" Cole hesitated, weighing operational security against the team's need to know. Someone who was declared dead 3 years ago but apparently had other plans. "And we're trusting her because?" "Because she's saved our lives 4 times already today. And because I've worked with her before. She's solid, Marcus." Quinn studied Cole's face, reading what wasn't being said. "There's history here." "There's history," Cole confirmed. They pushed on. The extraction point was a flat area large enough for a helicopter to land, sheltered by 3 sides of mountain. As they approached, Serena called another halt, her body language suddenly tense. "What's wrong?" Cole asked, joining her at the forward position. "The extraction point is compromised." She pointed to scuff marks on the rocks, barely visible in the failing light. "At least 6 men were here within the last 2 hours. They'll have eyes on it now." Cole felt his stomach sink. Without air extraction, Chen wouldn't make it. They were too far from any friendly base to walk out, especially with hostile forces actively hunting them. "Options?" he asked. Serena was silent for a long moment, her eyes distant, calculating. "There's an alternate site, 2 clicks west. Smaller, barely large enough for a bird to touch down, but they won't be watching it because officially, it doesn't exist on any maps." "How do you know about it?" "Because I used it to extract other ghosts." She met his eyes. "But Cole, if we go there, if I lead you there, certain people will know I'm still alive. My cover dies today." Cole understood what she was offering. Her anonymity, her safety, the shield that had kept her alive for 3 years. All of it would evaporate the moment she revealed the location of a hidden extraction point. But his team needed it. Chen needed it. "I can't ask you to do that," Cole said quietly. "You're not asking. I'm offering." Serena's jaw set in that stubborn line he remembered so well. "Besides, maybe it's time to stop being dead. It's exhausting, and the conversations are terrible." The joke was so unexpected, so perfectly timed, that Cole almost laughed despite everything. There she was, the person underneath the hardened survivor, the partner he'd thought he'd lost, still intact after 3 years of hell. "Lead the way," he said. The alternate extraction site was everything Serena had promised, a wind-scoured plateau barely large enough for a helicopter's landing skids, surrounded by broken terrain that would make approach difficult. She led them through the gathering darkness with the confidence of someone who'd walked this path 100 times before. Cole was coordinating with their air support when Serena suddenly went rigid beside him, her attention locked on something in the distance. Her hand moved to her rifle with the smooth, automatic motion of a gunfighter. "We've got company," she said quietly, "and not the random patrol kind." Cole looked where she indicated. At first he saw nothing, just shadows and rocks in the deepening twilight. Then, his trained eye picked out the sign's movement too purposeful to be natural, the distinctive silhouette of tactical gear, the glint of weapon optics catching the last rays of sun. "How many?" he asked. 20 that I can see. Probably more in reserve." Serena's voice was clinical, professional. "They're setting up a perimeter. This isn't a chance encounter, Cole. They knew we'd come here. Quinn had joined them, following their sightline." "That's impossible. You said this site wasn't on any maps." "It wasn't," Serena replied. "Which means someone's been tracking my movements more carefully than I thought." The pieces clicked together in Cole's mind with sickening clarity. "They weren't hunting us today. They were hunting you. We just walked into their trap." "Looks like it." Serena was already calculating angles, distances, fields of fire. "The good news is they probably won't use heavy explosives. They'll want to take me alive, which means we have options they don't." "What makes you so important?" Walsh asked, joining the group. "Because 3 years ago, I was in a position to overhear something I shouldn't have, and what I overheard could end careers, maybe start criminal investigations." Serena's voice went cold. The Kunduz operation wasn't just incompetence, it was intentional. Someone in the intelligence community deliberately sent us to massacre civilians, then tried to bury the evidence. When I survived, I became the evidence. Cole felt rage building in his chest. "Who?" "Station chief out of Bagram at the time. A man named Richard Kessler. He's up for CIA deputy director now. My existence would complicate that appointment." "So he's been hunting you for 3 years?" "On and off. I'd gotten good at staying invisible." Serena managed a grim smile, but apparently not good enough. "He must have realized I'd been operating in this region, put resources into tracking the ghost shooter. When your team got in trouble, he probably thought it was Christmas come early, a chance to draw me out and eliminate his problem permanently." "Then we need to call off the extraction," Cole said immediately. "Fall back. Find another way out." "There is no other way out. Not with Chen's condition." Serena shook her head. "Besides, they'll have spotters on all the approach routes by now. We're in the kill zone whether we like it or not." Quinn studied the terrain with a tactical eye. "We could fortify here, hold until reinforcements arrive." "In 12 hours, maybe," Cole said. "Chen doesn't have 12 hours. Then we fight our way through," Walsh suggested. "Against 4-to-1 odds in their chosen ground?" Serena's tone made clear what she thought of those chances. The team fell silent, each operator running the numbers and coming up with the same grim calculation. They were trapped, outgunned, with a wounded man who needed immediate evacuation and an enemy force that had every advantage. "There's another option," Serena said quietly. "Me." Cole knew where this was going and he didn't like it. "No. Listen to me. They want me, not you. I surrender, draw their focus, you use the distraction to call in the extraction. Chen gets out, the team gets out, mission accomplished." "Absolutely not," Cole said flatly. "We don't trade lives, and we sure as hell don't surrender operators too." "I'm not one of your operators, Cole. I'm not even officially alive." Serena's voice was gentle but firm. "This is the logical play." "Logical?" Cole repeated, his voice rising despite his efforts to stay calm. "You think it's logical to hand yourself over to the people who've been trying to kill you for 3 years? To let them finish what they started? I think it's logical to save 8 lives at the cost of 1. Except they won't just take you prisoner. They'll interrogate you, torture you for information about who you've contacted, who else knows about Kunduz. And then they'll kill you, and dump your body somewhere it'll never be found." Cole's hands clenched into fists. "I won't let that happen, not again." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, 3 years of loss and grief and guilt hung between them like a tangible presence. This was the conversation they'd never gotten to have, the one cut short by gunfire and blood and lies. "You don't get a vote," Serena said softly. "I already decided." "Like hell you did," Cole interrupted. He turned to Quinn. "Sergeant, combat assessment. How do we break this perimeter?" Quinn looked between Cole and Serena, clearly recognizing this was about more than tactics. "If we had a force multiplier, superior firepower, air support, anything to shift the odds?" "We have a force multiplier," Cole said, his mind racing through possibilities. "We have the most lethal sniper in this entire mountain range." Serena's eyes narrowed. What are you thinking? I'm thinking they're expecting a defensive posture or a surrender. They're not expecting an assault. Cole was already marking positions on his tactical map. You take the high ground here, where you'll have overlapping fields of fire. Start picking off their command elements, confuse their coordination. Meanwhile, Bravo 2 hits them from an unexpected angle, breaks their formation. In the chaos, we call in the extraction bird and everyone gets out. That's a terrible plan, Serena said bluntly. You have a better one? Yes. The one where Not an option, Cole cut her off. I left you behind once, spent 3 years living with that decision. I'm not doing it again, Serena. Not for tactical advantage, not for mission success, not for anything. We all get out, or none of us do. The silence stretched out. Finally, Serena nodded slowly. You always were stubborn. Learned from the best, Cole replied. They had 90 minutes until full darkness, not enough time for elaborate planning, but enough to set the stage. Serena moved to her chosen position with practiced efficiency, finding a notch in the rock face that provided concealment and a commanding view of the killing ground below. Cole watched her set up, the ritual unchanged from all those operations years ago. First, the rifle bipod extended and adjusted. Then the rangefinder, calculating distances to key landmarks. Finally, the scope, dialed in for elevation and windage, checked and rechecked, with the careful attention of someone whose life depended on precision. Just like old times, he said quietly. Except older and more cynical. Serena didn't look up from her preparations. Cole, you understand what happens if this goes sideways? The people behind this, they have reach. If they can make me disappear, they can do the same to you, to your team. Let them try. I'm serious. This isn't just tactics and timing. This is conspiracy at the highest levels. Witnesses tend to have fatal accidents. Cole knelt beside her position. Then, I guess we better make sure we have enough witnesses that accidents become implausible. Serena finally looked at him. Really looked at him. And something in her expression softened. You've changed. You're harder than you were. 3 years will do that. 3 years of blaming yourself for my death, she said. I'm sorry you carried that. And I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. You were following orders. Good orders. The mission. Damn the mission, Cole said with sudden vehemence. And damn the brass who sent us into that situation. I should have questioned the intelligence, should have pushed back harder when it smelled wrong. Instead, I trusted the system, and the system fed you into a meat grinder. Serena reached out, her hand gripping his arm with surprising strength. Listen to me. The Cole Ramsey who questions every order, who can't trust his chain of command, that's not the officer your team needs. That's not who you are. What happened in Kunduz was a betrayal. But it wasn't your fault. I gave the order to extract. The right order. If you'd stayed, we'd both be dead. Instead, I survived. Maybe that was luck. Maybe it was skill. Maybe it was sheer spite, because I was too angry to die properly. But I'm here now, Cole. And what matters is what we do next. Below them, Quinn's voice crackled over the radio. Lieutenant, hostiles are moving into final positions. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they're set. Copy that, Cole replied. Then, to Serena, are you ready? She chambered around, the action smooth and practiced. Always. Cole returned to the main group, gathering the team for final instructions. 8 faces looked back at him, 7 SEALs and 1 Marine corpsman, all exhausted, all carrying wounds or bruises from the day's fighting, all trusting him to get them home. This is going to be loud, fast, and messy, Cole said. Our shooter will engage first, targeting their command structure. The moment she fires, we move on these routes. He indicated paths on the tactical map and hit them from 3 directions simultaneously. The goal isn't to win a protracted firefight. It's to create enough chaos that they lose cohesion. Then we call in the bird and extract under that confusion. And if they have reinforcements? Walsh asked. Then our shooter will have more targets, Cole said. And we'll have to move faster. Chen, propped against a boulder with Briggs monitoring his vitals, spoke up weakly. Sir, you should leave me. I'm slowing you down. Not happening, Chen. You came in with us. You're leaving with us. Who is the shooter anyway? Another operator asked. She some kind of CIA asset? Cole hesitated. then decided they deserved some version of the truth. Her name is Serena Vale, former Force Recon, Scout Sniper. She was declared KIA 3 years ago, but clearly the paperwork was premature. Today, she's the only reason we're still breathing. Why was she declared KIA? Quinn asked carefully. Because certain people wanted her that way, and those same people are down there right now, which means this isn't just an extraction, it's also a chance to set the record straight. Understanding passed through the group. These were operators who'd all worked in the shadowy spaces where official reports didn't always match reality. The idea that one of their own had been deliberately erased resonated on a visceral level. Then let's go get some payback, Walsh said grimly. They moved into position as the sun finally dropped below the mountain peaks, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Cole found himself in a small depression with Quinn, watching the enemy forces through night vision. They'd set up exactly as Serena predicted, a perimeter designed to contain rather than assault, with command elements positioned centrally to coordinate the operation. Ramsey, this is Vale. I've got firing solutions on 6 primary targets, Serena's voice in his ear, calm as if she was ordering coffee. On your mark. Cole took a breath, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The mission 3 years ago, the guilt and grief that had followed, the impossible resurrection that had happened today. And now, a chance to make at least part of it right. All units, stand by, he transmitted. Then, Vale, you are cleared hot. The first shot came 3 seconds later. Crack. The sound echoed off the rock walls, and the enemy commander dropped without a sound. Before his body hit the ground, Serena had already transitioned to her second target. Crack. Their communications specialist went down, radio still clutched in his hand. Chaos rippled through the hostile formation as operators suddenly realized they were under precision fire from an invisible threat. Bravo 2, execute, Cole barked. They hit the perimeter from 3 directions simultaneously. Walsh's element came from the north, suppressing with coordinated fire. Quinn's team swept in from the south, using the terrain for cover. Cole's own group drove straight through the center, exploiting the confusion Serena had created. The enemy tried to respond, but their coordination was gone. Serena's rifle spoke again and again, each shot removing another key player from the equation. A squad leader here, a heavy weapons specialist there, always targeting whoever tried to organize resistance. Cole found himself in the middle of the firefight, muscle memory and training taking over. Fire, move, communicate, keep the team coordinated, watch for threats, trust your partners. And overhead, Serena's rifle continued its deadly work. An enemy operator rose from cover, trying to flank Walsh's position. Before Cole could call a warning, the man went down. Serena had seen the threat and neutralized it in the span of a heartbeat. Ramsey, you've got 2 tangos moving up the eastern slope, trying to get an angle on your position. Serena transmitted, her voice still eerily calm. Cole adjusted, directing Quinn to intercept. The sergeant's element caught the hostiles in a crossfire, eliminating them before they could threaten the team. The hostile force was larger and better equipped, but they were fighting blind, unable to coordinate, their leadership systematically dismantled by a sniper they couldn't locate. What should have been a contained capture operation had turned into a nightmare for them. Extraction bird is inbound, ETA 4 minutes, the radio crackled. Copy that, Cole replied. Bravo 2, start falling back to the LZ, maintain suppressing fire. The team executed the withdrawal with practiced precision, bounding backward while keeping the enemy pinned. Serena's shots came less frequently. Now, she was probably running low on ammunition, but each one still found its mark. Then, Cole heard something that made his blood run cold. The distinctive whistle of an incoming mortar round. Incoming! He screamed. The team scattered as the mortar impacted, too close for comfort. Then another, and another. The enemy had brought up indirect fire, willing to risk killing their own people to take out Bravo 2. They're bracketing our position, Quinn shouted. We need to move, now. But Chen couldn't move fast enough. Briggs was essentially carrying the wounded operator, and that made them both vulnerable. Cole saw another mortar arc through the darkening sky, the trajectory putting it right on top of the corpsman and his patient. Before he could even think to react, Cole was moving. He covered the distance in a sprint, tackling both men and rolling them behind a boulder. The mortar hit where they'd been standing a heartbeat before, spraying shrapnel against the rock. I've got Chen, Cole yelled to Briggs. Go. He hauled the wounded SEAL across his shoulders in a fireman's carry and ran for the LZ. Around him, the rest of Bravo 2 was executing the extraction under fire. Every operator focused on getting to the helicopter that was now visible descending toward the plateau. Vale. Status? Cole transmitted, suddenly aware he hadn't heard from Serena in the last 30 seconds. No response. Serena, respond. Still nothing. Cole's heart hammered against his ribs. He got Chen to the helicopter, watched Briggs and Walsh load him aboard, then turned back toward Serena's position. "Sir, we need to go," Quinn shouted over the rotor wash. Not without Vale. He was already moving back into the chaos when he saw her. She was running down the slope from her sniper nest, rifle slung across her back, moving with that same fluid grace despite the explosions erupting around her. But she wasn't running toward the helicopter. She was running towards something else. Cole followed her trajectory and saw what had captured her attention. A figure partially concealed behind a vehicle 200 yards from the LZ. Even at this distance, even in the failing light, Cole recognized something in the man's posture and bearing command presence, the kind that came from years of authority. Serena was going after a target. Specifically, she was going after her target. Damn it, Serena! Cole broke into a run, trying to intercept her. The man behind the vehicle saw Serena coming and raised a pistol. Cole was close enough now to see the face mid-50s, hard features, the look of someone who'd spent a career making difficult decisions and sleeping just fine afterward. Richard Kessler. Serena closed the distance with terrifying speed. Kessler fired twice, but she was already moving, rolling, coming up in a shooting stance. Her sidearm was in her hand before Cole could even track the motion. "It's over, Richard," Serena called out, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "You can't bury this anymore. You should have stayed dead," Kessler replied, and fired again. This time the bullet found its mark. Serena went down. Cole saw red. He was on Kessler before the man could fire a fourth time, tackling him with the full force of a linebacker, driving him to the ground. The pistol went flying. Cole's fist connected with Kessler's jaw once, twice, pouring 3 years of rage and grief and loss into each impact. "Cole, stop!" Serena's voice, weak but urgent. "We need him alive. We need him to talk." Cole froze, fist raised for another blow. Kessler lay beneath him, nose bloodied, eyes defiant even in defeat. "She's right," Quinn said, suddenly there beside them. "He's worth more as a witness than a corpse." Cole slowly lowered his fist, though every fiber of his being wanted to finish what he'd started. He zip-tied Kessler's hands with perhaps more force than necessary, then scrambled over to where Serena had fallen. She was sitting up, clutching her side. Blood seeped between her fingers. "Bullet caught the edge of my vest. Hurts like hell but nothing vital. Help me up." "You're shot," Cole said, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't entirely suppress. Not the first time. She gripped his offered hand and let him pull her to her feet, wincing. "Won't be the last if I keep making bad decisions." Going after Kessler alone was definitely a bad decision. Had to. He's the key to everything. Serena looked at the bound man, her expression hard. 3 years, he's had me running. Time to flip the script. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled urgently over the radio. "We need to go. Now. I've got more hostiles inbound." Cole supported Serena as they stumbled toward the LZ, Quinn dragging the cursing Kessler behind them. The rest of Bravo 2 was providing covering fire, but enemy reinforcements were arriving, and the tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. They made it to the helicopter just as tracer rounds started walking toward their position. Cole literally threw Serena through the door, then climbed in himself, pulling Kessler in behind him. Quinn was the last aboard, firing his rifle one-handed as he scrambled into the crew bay. "Go, go, go," Cole shouted to the pilot. The helicopter lifted off with bullets pinging off its armored hull. Cole found himself pressed against the crew bay wall, Serena beside him, both of them breathing hard. Around them, the team was checking weapons, confirming head counts, treating wounds. Chen was stable. Everyone was accounted for. Against all odds, they'd made it out. Cole looked at Serena, really looked at her. Blood on her vest, dirt on her face, eyes fierce even in exhaustion. 3 years ago he'd thought he'd lost her forever. Now she was here, solid and real, and very much alive. "You good?" he asked quietly. Serena managed a tired smile. "I've been worse." Across the crew bay, Kessler glared at them both. "You have no idea what you've done. The assets in play, the operations that will be compromised." "Shut up," Quinn suggested pleasantly, pressing his rifle muzzle against the man's temple. "You're done giving orders." As the helicopter banked away from the mountains, Cole felt something shift inside him. The guilt he'd carried for 3 years wasn't gone. That kind of weight didn't just disappear, but it had changed, transformed from a burden of loss into a determination to set things right. "What happens now?" Serena asked, reading his thoughts as she always had. Now we tell the truth. The flight to Bagram Air Base took 40 minutes. Cole spent most of it coordinating with command, explaining in careful terms that they had recovered not just the team but also a ghost and a traitor. The silence on the other end of the radio told him that particular bombshell was going to cause ripples all the way up the chain. Briggs worked on Serena's gunshot wound, cleaning and bandaging it with practiced efficiency. "You're lucky," the corpsman said. "Another inch to the right, and we'd be having a very different conversation." "Story of my life," Serena replied. "Luck and inches." When they touched down at Bagram, it was to a reception committee that included base security, intelligence officers, and a full colonel that Cole didn't recognize. They were separated immediately. Kessler to detention, Chen to the field hospital, Bravo 2 to debriefing, and Serena to somewhere else. "Where are you taking her?" Cole demanded as MPs moved to escort Serena away. "That's need to know, Lieutenant," the colonel said coolly. "I need to know. She just saved my entire team and provided intelligence on a compromised operation, which is exactly why she needs to be debriefed by the appropriate authorities." The colonel's expression wasn't unkind, just firm. "You'll get your chance to see her. But first, we need to sort out exactly what happened today." Cole watched helplessly as they led Serena away. She caught his eye once before disappearing around a corner, her expression unreadable. The next 6 hours were a blur of debriefings, medical checks, and increasingly tense conversations with intelligence officers who seemed more interested in damage control than the truth. Cole stuck to the facts: the ambush, the ghost shooter who'd saved them, the revelation of her identity, Kessler's role in the operation. "Let me make sure I understand," said a civilian in an expensive suit who'd identified himself only as being from Langley. "You're claiming that a CIA station chief orchestrated the death of a force recon operator to cover up a botched intelligence operation 3 years ago?" "I'm not claiming anything," Cole replied evenly. "I'm reporting what I observed and what Serena Vale reported to me. You want confirmation? There's a prisoner in your detention facility who can provide it." Station Chief Kessler has already given his version of events. According to him, Vale is a deserter who's been selling classified information to the enemy for 3 years. Today's operation was an attempt to bring her in peacefully. Cole felt his temper rising. "That's a lie and you know it." "What I know, Lieutenant, is that we have a very complex situation that requires careful handling. Wild allegations about conspiracy and cover-ups don't help anyone." "Then let me talk to her. Let me coordinate our testimonies so you can see they match." "That's not going to be possible." Something in the man's tone made Cole's blood run cold. "Why not?" "Because Serena Vale doesn't exist. According to all official records, she died 3 years ago in Kunduz province. A woman claiming to be her, who appears in the middle of a combat zone with no verifiable chain of custody, no official status, and highly suspicious knowledge of classified operations." The civilian spread his hands. "That's a massive security concern." "So what are you saying? You're just going to make her disappear again?" "I'm saying this situation requires careful evaluation. In the meantime, Lieutenant, I'd strongly advise you to think very carefully about what you include in your official report. Career-ending mistakes can be made very easily when emotions run high." It was a threat, barely veiled, and Cole understood the game now. They were going to try to bury this, just like they'd buried Kunduz. Serena would be labeled unstable, her testimony dismissed, Kessler protected because he knew too much and had too many connections. Unless Cole refused to play along. "My official report will contain the truth," he said flatly. "All of it. If that's a career-ending mistake, so be it." The civilian sighed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Good." The man left, and Cole was alone in the debriefing room. He sat there for a long moment, thinking about Serena somewhere else in this sprawling base, probably in a cell, probably being told the same lies, probably preparing to disappear again rather than let anyone else get burned by her testimony. He couldn't let that happen. Not this time. Cole found Quinn in the team room, cleaning his rifle with the focused attention of someone using the routine to process a difficult day. "Marcus, I need you to do something that might get us both in trouble." Quinn looked up. "How much trouble are we talking about, sir?" "Court-martial level, potentially." The sergeant considered this for a moment, then nodded. "What do you need?" "I need to find where they're holding Serena. And then I need to get her in front of people who'll actually listen. The brass aren't going to let that happen quietly." "I know. That's why we're not going to ask permission." Quinn set down his cleaning rod and stood. "You trust her that much?" "With my life. With all our lives." Cole met his sergeant's eyes. "She's been telling the truth from the start. It's the system that's lying." "Then, let's go find her." It took 2 hours, a lot of creative interpretation of base access protocols, and one instance of Quinn creating a distraction while Cole slipped past a checkpoint he definitely wasn't authorized to cross. But eventually, Cole found himself outside a guarded room in the intelligence wing. The guard was young, probably on his first deployment, and looked distinctly uncomfortable with whatever was happening on his watch. "Sir, I can't let you in there. I'm not asking you to let me in. I'm ordering you to take a 5-minute break while I verify something with the prisoner." "Sir, my orders came from a civilian with dubious authority. My orders come from the UCMJ and my responsibility to my fellow operators. Now, are you going to take that break, or am I going to have to make this a formal incident?" The guard wavered, looked at Cole's rank insignia and his sealed trident, and made a decision. 5 minutes. If anyone asks, I was checking the perimeter. Smart man. Cole opened the door. Serena was sitting on a metal chair in a room that was technically not a cell but absolutely felt like one. She looked up as he entered, and something like relief flashed across her face before she could hide it. "They let you in?" she asked. "More like I didn't give them a choice." Cole pulled up the only other chair and sat. "We need to talk strategy." "There is no strategy, Cole. They're going to bury this. Kessler has too many friends, too much leverage. I'm just a ghost who inconveniently came back to life. So we make sure you're not the only witness. My entire team saw what happened. That's 8 military personnel willing to testify. And they'll all be pressured to forget what they saw, or reinterpret it, or decide their careers are more important than the truth. I don't blame them. I will personally break the jaw of anyone who suggests we reinterpret anything," Cole interrupted. "Despite everything, Serena almost smiled, still trying to save me." "Still refusing to be saved," Cole countered. "Some things don't change." They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Serena spoke. 3 years ago, when you gave the order to extract, you made the right call, but I never got to tell you that. Never got to tell you it wasn't your fault. That you didn't fail me. That I understood why you did what you did." "Serena, let me finish. I've had 3 years to think about this, and I need you to hear it." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "You gave the order that saved 7 lives at the cost of 1. That's command. That's what leaders do. And I never blamed you for it, not for 1 second." Cole felt something tight in his chest beginning to loosen. "I thought I'd killed you. You kept the team alive. That was the mission." Serena paused. "But Cole, what happens next that's different? If you stand with me on this, if you push back against the cover-up, you're putting your whole career on the line. Your team's careers. That's not command. That's martyrdom. Or, it's standing up for what's right. Right doesn't always win." "Then I guess we'll find out together." The door opened and the young guard stuck his head in. "Sir, you need to leave. There's a major heading this way." Cole stood, but before leaving he turned back to Serena. "Whatever happens, you're not alone in this. Not anymore." "Cole." "Not alone," he repeated firmly. "Get used to it." He left before she could argue further. What followed was 2 days of the most intense bureaucratic warfare Cole had ever experienced. He filed his report exactly as events had occurred, with full details of Serena's testimony regarding Kunduz and Kessler's role. Quinn and the rest of Bravo 2 backed him up with matching accounts. The pressure came immediately. Suggestions that Cole might be misremembering details. Hints that stress and combat fatigue could cloud judgment. carefully worded warnings about the consequences of making unsupported allegations against senior intelligence officials. Cole refused to budge an inch. Lieutenant Ramsey, a new face, a brigadier general this time, with enough fruit salad on his chest to open a produce stand. I'm going to be direct with you. Station Chief Kessler is a highly decorated officer with 30 years of service. Your friend is someone who officially died 3 years ago and has been operating without authorization in a combat zone. Whose story do you think carries more weight? The one backed by 8 witnesses and physical evidence. What physical evidence? The ballistics from Serena's rifle will match the kills credited to the ghost shooter over the past 3 years. Her knowledge of classified operational details can be verified. And if you actually interrogate Kessler instead of protecting him, you'll find inconsistencies in his story. The general was quiet for a long moment. You understand you're accusing elements of the CIA of conspiracy and attempted murder? I'm reporting the facts as they occurred. If those facts make certain people uncomfortable, that's not my problem. It will become your problem very quickly. Then I guess I'll deal with it. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. A JAG officer named Captain Elizabeth Morris, who'd been reviewing the case files, noticed something odd about the original Kunduz after-action report. It had been filed and sealed with unusual speed, and the classification level was higher than standard protocol required for an operation of that type. She started pulling threads, and the whole fabricated tapestry began unraveling. The intelligence that had sent Cole and Serena into that compound? Based on an unverified single-source report that Kessler himself had authorized without proper vetting. The rapid closure of the investigation into Serena's death? Pushed through by Kessler's office over objections from Force Recon Command. The unusual classification level? Requested by Kessler to limit access to potentially embarrassing details. Individually, each item could be explained. Together, they formed a pattern. This is prosecutable, Captain Morris told Cole during a briefing 3 days after the extraction. If Vale's testimony holds up under formal questioning, and if we can verify the details she provided about her capture and escape, we have enough to bring charges. Will her testimony hold up? Cole asked. That depends on her. And on whether she's willing to go through what will essentially be a second ordeal of interrogation, this time by our people. Cole thought about what that meant, reliving the trauma, facing her demons in front of official panels, being questioned and doubted and tested in every possible way. She'll do it. You're very certain. I know her. And he was right. When they finally brought Serena in front of the investigating panel, she gave testimony that was clear, detailed, and unshakable. She described her capture, her interrogation, her realization that no rescue was coming. She laid out her escape and the years that followed, navigating hostile territory while staying invisible to both enemy forces and her own supposed allies. She spoke about discovering the truth behind Kunduz, how a local asset had told her the intelligence was fabricated, how she'd pieced together Kessler's role, how she'd tried and failed to make contact with proper authorities because Kessler's network was watching for her. Why not just disappear? One panel member asked. Why stay in the region, operating as a vigilante? Serena's answer was simple. Because good people were still dying from bad intelligence. If I couldn't fix the system, I could at least protect the operators on the ground. The investigation took weeks. Cole was confined to base, his team scattered to various assignments as the brass tried to separate them. But the truth, once exposed to daylight, proved surprisingly resilient. Kessler's story fell apart under scrutiny. Other operators came forward with concerns they'd had about his intelligence assessments. An audit of his communications revealed suspicious gaps during the period of Serena's captivity. The forensic evidence supported everything she'd claimed. In the end, Richard Kessler was arrested and charged with conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and attempted murder of a federal agent. His nomination for deputy director was withdrawn. Several of his associates in the intelligence community quietly retired, and Serena Vale was officially resurrected. The ceremony was private, held in a nondescript conference room on Fort Bragg. A 2-star general presented Serena with orders restoring her to active duty, along with a commendation for actions above and beyond in hostile territory. No mention of the conspiracy, the cover-up, the 3 years of hell, just a bureaucratic acknowledgement that she had, in fact, not been dead. Cole attended in dress uniform, along with Quinn and the rest of Bravo 2. They'd become oddly protective of Serena over the weeks of the investigation, this fierce ghost who'd saved their lives and then refused to disappear quietly when powerful people wanted her gone. Afterward, in the hallway, Cole found Serena staring at the commendation like it might bite her. "Strange feeling?" he asked. "Being alive again?" Serena laughed shortly. "You could say that. I'm not sure I know how to do it anymore." "You'll figure it out." "Will I?" She met his eyes. "Cole, I've spent 3 years being a ghost. No attachments, no connections, no expectations beyond surviving another day. I don't know how to be part of a team again. How to follow orders from people I don't trust. How to pretend everything's normal when I know it isn't. So don't pretend, just be honest." "Honest." She tested the word. "That's a luxury I haven't been able to afford." "Consider it a gift then. From someone who's really glad you're alive." Serena was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "The night before Kunduz, you told me something. You remember?" Cole did remember. They'd been prepping gear, just the two of them in the equipment room, and he'd said words he'd regretted for 3 years, not because they were untrue, but because he'd never gotten to find out if she felt the same way. "I remember," he said. "I never got to answer. And then, I spent 3 years thinking I'd never get the chance." Serena turned to face him fully. "So here's my answer. Yes. Whatever you were asking, whatever you were offering, yes." Cole felt something that had been broken inside him for 3 years suddenly snap back into place. Not healed, healing would take time, but at least aligned properly again, ready to start mending. "The brass is offering me a training position," Serena continued. "Teaching advanced reconnaissance and marksmanship at Quantico. It's safe, respectable, doesn't involve getting shot at. I should probably take it. But there's another option. A joint task force being assembled to investigate and clean up other potential intelligence failures in the region. They need someone who knows the terrain, knows the players, and doesn't have any illusions about the system. Sounds dangerous. Probably. But at least it's honest danger, not the kind where your own people are trying to kill you." Serena paused. "They want to know if I'd recommend anyone to lead the security element. Someone with experience in unconventional operations and a demonstrated unwillingness to accept convenient lies." Cole understood what she was asking. "My team is being reassigned. We could probably be talked into a change of orders. It would mean more time in theater. More operations that might turn complicated. More chances to make powerful people angry." "Sounds like Tuesday," Cole said. Serena smiled then, really smiled, and for the first time since he'd seen her on that hillside, Cole glimpsed the person she'd been before everything went wrong. Still there, still fighting, still refusing to quit, even when quitting would be easier. "Then I guess we'd better get started," she said. They walked out of the building together, into sunlight that felt somehow brighter than it had that morning. Behind them was a past full of mistakes and cover-ups and losses that couldn't be undone. Ahead was uncertain future in a system they both knew was flawed and dangerous. But they were walking into it together, eyes open, ready for whatever came next. And in the end, Cole thought, maybe that was enough. 3 years ago, he'd given an order that had haunted him ever since. He'd thought he'd lost Serena to that decision, lost part of himself in the process. Now, impossibly, he'd gotten a second chance not to change the past, but to make the future different. Some ghosts, it turned out, refused to stay buried. And some partnerships were too strong to be destroyed, even by conspiracies and lies and years of separation. "Hey Cole," Serena said as they reached the parking lot. "About that thing you said before Kunduz." "Yeah? We should probably talk about it properly sometime. When we're not in the middle of a bureaucratic nightmare or a combat zone, I'd like that." "Good. Because I'm done with half-finished conversations and things left unsaid." She glanced at him, her expression serious, but with warmth underneath. "Life's too short. I've died once already. Not planning to make that mistake again." Cole laughed, and it felt good, felt real, in a way that few things had over the past 3 years. "Deal. No more dying, and no more leaving things unsaid. It's a plan." They stood there for a moment, two operators in dress uniform, survivors of a conspiracy that had tried to bury them both, now facing a future that was uncertain, but at least honest. Behind them, the wheels of military justice would continue turning. Trials would happen, reports would be filed, the system would slowly, painfully acknowledge its failures and make promises to do better. But out here, in the sunlight, Cole and Serena were done being victims of the system's failures. They were done with guilt and ghosts and convenient lies. They were alive, they were together, and they had work to do. So, Cole said, "This task force, when do we start?" 2 weeks. Plenty of time to get our gear squared away and brief the team. Plenty of time, Cole agreed. Then, with a slight smile, "Think you can teach me that trick you pulled with the 8-centimeter rock gap? That was a hell of a shot." That was just showing off. Serena's eyes glinted with something that might have been the ghost of her old humor. "The real trick is everything I did before pulling the trigger. Breathing, calculating, patience. You always wanted the quick wins, Cole. Sometimes the best shot is the one you take your time with." Is that a metaphor? Maybe. She started walking toward her car. "Come on. If we're going to be working together again, you need to see how much your shooting stance has deteriorated in 3 years. It's embarrassing." "My stance is fine. It's terrible. You're lucky I was there to save your life." "I saved your life. Only after I saved yours first." They were still arguing, still laughing, as they drove away from Fort Bragg. Behind them, the past remained heavy, scarred, impossible to forget. But ahead was something they'd both thought they'd lost. A future, a partnership, a second chance. And sometimes, in a world full of lies and cover-ups and convenient deaths, a second chance was the most valuable thing you could fight for. The ghost had come back from the dead. The truth had survived its burial. And 2 operators who'd been forced apart by conspiracy and lies had found their way back to each other. It wasn't a perfect ending. The scars would remain. The system would still be flawed. The dangers would still be real. But it was honest. It was true. And it was theirs. And that, Cole thought as he watched Serena drive beside him toward whatever came next, was worth fighting for.